Hey everyone, we are live with our last session for the day. It's the heavy hitters and operators panel. Today we have Melissa joining us from em.vc. She brings massive experience in the Indian context, in the Indian fintech space. For those who don't know, she was at Zomato. She was a part of a very random tidbit that I remember, Forward Securities Commission, which no longer exists. And since a few years back, she's now running em.vc, Emphasis Ventures, which is which has backed companies like Khata Book and continues to back some amazing companies in the fintech space. Next up, we have Aalesh from Samyakth and from CreditWise Capital. Aalesh, in his role as Samyakth, runs a micro VC that has backed a bunch of companies like Bharat Pay, Liquid Loans, and to name a few. And he also runs CreditWise Capital, uh, a two-wheeler financing NBFC, which has raised, I think, just a few weeks back, a pretty massive round. And we have Vipul from Gemba, who has again backed. If a few of you were aware, around for the previous conversation where we had Rahul. So Vipul and Gamba are backers in Bima Pay, and in his new role recently at Smallcase, he leads new initiatives there. So the objective of this panel broadly was that we wanted to get folks who are also investors and who are also actively running, their own. Their own venture and actively part of bigger organizations, and so providing a very on grounds perspective, both from running these companies with regards to these ODEs like the account aggregator and the others, plus what they a moment if they could take to put on their investing cap and help out the builders in the audience. So over to you guys.
Thanks, Nikhil. It's so great to be here with all of you. Look forward to the day when we can all hang in person and have like proper, sidebar conversations to work on building products. Just to further on the intro that Nikhil made, my background is really building products in India as this whole digital wave has developed. So was really involved in formation of some of the Aadhaar implementation, and then when NPCI and UPI was being formed, working with payments companies and open banking networks around the world, kind of interacting with how things will develop in India. And so seeing this AA ecosystem actually start to kind of flower and grow is super exciting, also in the context of the wave of what's happening in the country and the trajectory, which I really believe is the most exciting kind of economic story in the world of our generation. And that's kind of our thesis at em.vc as well. So super excited to be here with Vipul and Aalesh, who are formidable early stage investors and operators in this space. So guys, how are you thinking about this kind of ODE in India, and specifically from a startup space, how are you starting to look at new startups that are emerging and identifying what will be the hot big thing within these spaces?
Vipul?
Vipul?
Yeah, go. Aalesh, you want to go first?
Yeah, of course.
No, Vipul, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I'll just go ahead, right? So hi, Melissa. I think we're meeting for the first time, pseudo meeting. Nice to meet you, and Vipul, same here. So having been,
Your video is off if you want to switch it on, but please go ahead otherwise.
Yeah, I'm trying, but for some reason my camera is locked. So
okay, let's get started.
Yeah. So yeah, I think having started a fintech focused micro VC, right? One thing has been very clear since 2017 onwards is when I started, is there has been huge changes that has come in this fintech landscape. Startups coming in today are reaping the benefits of pioneers that had done something early on in UPI, right, in 2016, 2017. It's become more of hygiene to have things that were developed from the open digital ecosystem back then, some things like eKYC, e-sign, UPI. If today startups don't have that, that's basic hygiene. Companies coming in today, startups that are building things for the next 3-4 years or the next 5 years, are going to be in a position where they would be the next phone pay, they would be the next Google Pay, they would be the next Bharat Pay. Things that are being built today because of the likes of iSpirit and thanks to people at Samyakth, things like the whole account aggregator, the DigiLocker, the uh, things like that. We are seeing now probably one in uh, 30 fintechs having some kind of an element regarding this. And I think that's it's great to see, right? Because um, startups are taking that punt, startups are taking that plunge that, yeah, there are challenges with these new things coming up, but no, they will build their entire system, entire stack around these new initiatives. And
Yeah.
that's something that we love forward to, right? Because we welcome that change, because it is going to happen. It is just a matter of time. Either you as a startup are either too early for it, or you missed the bus. So the fact that these early adopters are taking that punt is something that we really look forward to, and that's something that we've been noticing quite a bit in the last probably 5 months.
Yeah. I didn't set the framework for our timing today. This is a short session, so we're going to keep it kind of rapid fire. I'll keep
Perfect.
coming with the questions in a fast way. I'm happy to respond as well. If any of you, we make it an interactive conversation, and then folks in the session will still make room for Q&A. So if you have questions, add them to the chat, keep them coming, and we'll make it as interactive as possible. But it's going to be quick. So Vipul, as a current operator, also with some investing hat, how do you plan on leveraging the open digital ecosystems in your current capacity? Will you be looking to leverage this, and how are you thinking about learning more and digging in to the new architecture?
Yeah, I think as Aalesh said, some of these open digital ecosystem things have really become essential for us to be able to, catch on to onboard new customers more easily, especially on the KYC side. And so, in terms of account aggregator, I started my previous company called FinTech Labs in 2015, and we started building a bank statement analyzer because we identified that cash flow based lending was really picking up, but the biggest challenge was that the financial data or the bank statement was really not available. So we started up building a PDF parser, then we had to go towards OCR to get those statements. So the challenges back just a few years back were huge in that space, and then with Perfius coming in to solve some of that problem, I'm really looking forward to how new use cases around that. So this particular use case is very obvious one, which is the lending use case for using the bank statements or other financial data over the AA ecosystem.
Yeah. So more directly, do you see Smallcase starting to use something within the AA framework? Is that something you're working on currently? And Aalesh, I have the same question for you in terms of CapitalWise. CreditWise.
Yeah. So account aggregator, I think, like most other people, we'll have to wait and watch because it was supposed to go live. Like the delays have really led people to now wait and watch that once there are enough FIUs on the platform. No, yeah, it's live, but there needs to be enough FIPs on the platform. Once enough providers are there, then it starts making significant. But we've started planning something towards that space. Basically, the core of what we do at Smallcase is not a very personalized solution as of now. A small case is a small case independent of your thing. So I think this account aggregator will help us in bringing the personalization angle into what we do. So that's what is in our pipeline.
Got it. Aalesh, how about you from an operator hat? Do you plan on engaging with new ODEs in India?
Absolutely. I think speaking about account aggregator, right? I cannot wait to go live. Speaking constantly with Nikhil, from Finark and Flux's point of view, where CreditWise Capital can become account aggregator live. Because for my use case, it makes life so much more easier. About 60% of the customer base that I lend to, um, those banks are already live as FIPs. So for me, it's a no-brainer that I am live on account aggregator as soon as possible. And in terms of other ODI examples, UPI. UPI 2.0 is something that I constantly have to use for collection. Because in the lending business, you don't want to you want to reduce the dependency on cash. So the fact that we are UPI 2.0 ready, I want to be account aggregator ready, I think I would be one of the most excited about the things happening in ODE.
I love that we're all such nerds and so excited about these things that when you mentioned UPI 2.0, the room exploded with celebration emojis. Great that we're all equally excited about these things. Great. So Vipul, from an investment perspective, what questions would you still like to be answered around ODEs, and where, some of the muddy waters or opaque areas? To start from my perspective as an investor, really around commercialization of some of the models that really are semi-public infrastructure is the ongoing question in terms of sustainability of amazing businesses and products that are going to be built on top of this. Obviously, it's an ongoing work in progress, but there's still lots of exciting stuff to be done. What about you?
Yeah, I think, as I said, we'll have to wait and watch as to enough FIPs needs to be there. But in terms of monetization, the core of the business, like ODE, is meant to be open, right? So you have to monetize by selling other complementary products. And I think insurance is one space where we are really looking forward to. Right now, most insurance underwriting is quite straightforward. Again, more personalization with data needs to be on, need to be happening there. So somebody who can enable insurance underwriters to uh, underwrite better using this data, so that there is an opportunity there.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think the two biggest, but like the most basic questions that still need to be answered as like the privacy with it, the fact that there's so much dependency of all the data in one location, one center, that aspect of centralization of data. And I think adoption, I think those two, as naive and as basic it can get, I think there's still one of the biggest challenges or muddy waters that needs to get addressed. My parents themselves are yet not live on UPI. So that adoption on account aggregator will take time, and it's just who does it quickest to get everyone out there. I think that's needs to get addressed. That's something that has to be the core focus over the next 2 years.
Out of curiosity and a little off topic, what would it take for them to get on UPI? You've solved 50 other fintech problems, so how come you haven't solved this one?
I think it's the comfort. It's a generational gap. It took them time to get onto something like an Uber, Ola as well. So it's just that I just gave an example, which is a generational gap. But here it's more of the security, privacy concern. I think something like a UPI, right, in 2016, 2017, it didn't pick up. Why? Because it was your mobile number at the rate your bank account. But now that got changed to your mobile number at the rate to a random bank account. Like it's my number at any bank that you have at the back end. So I think that gave a lot of comfort, which is why UPI picked up so much after 2017 onward. So something like that, I'm sure, could probably give the older generation slightly more comfort as you move forward.
That's an interesting thought experiment for any devs that are on the group right now, in terms of for that generational gap or the last mile that still hasn't adopted some of the digital architecture in India. Like, what really would it take? What is that generational gap, or the kind of last mile gap between a tier 3 city that's included, quote unquote digitally included, versus excluded, like in some rural market. Really interesting stuff. So cool. Let's talk about unit economics a little bit. So how do you both see, this is an open question, right? Who is going to foot the bill that comes up with things around ODEs from an information user perspective? And how are you seeing opportunities for monetization, not for purely the sake of just making money, but actually for sustainability of businesses and products that are built on these things?
Yeah. So I think firstly, this comparison between UPI and account aggregator, I don't find very fair. UPI was more of a, I would say B2C use case where you could download a UPI app through which you could do, users would do the transactions. So it was more of a customer facing. Whereas account aggregator will not really be a customer. So you may not have account aggregator app downloaded in your phone, right? It will be something which will be a part of a B2B solution where the customer has actually gone to buy an insurance or he has gone to take a loan. As a part of that process, account aggregator will come in as one step, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think from a unit economic sense, it'll make sense for people to start building products in such a way that the cost of that data is inculcated in their product itself.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually.
So for me, I think there's going to be a lot of cost saving that's going to happen with these initiatives. For example, you look at account aggregator, even though it's not customer facing, Vipul. Now you're as a lender, as an NBFC, I have to take a hit from Porpheus, I have to take a hit from CRIF, I have to take a hit from Experian. So there's entire cost that comes into with underwriting, right? That adds up to quite a bit. Now, if I just have an access to the customer's AA account, right, and I get consent from it, I think for me there's going to be tremendous cost saving. If there's any cost saving, that straight away gets passed on to the customer. So I think it's a win-win for everyone here. Anyone that probably should be sweating right now are those fintechs who have probably not gotten the AA account license yet, or not don't have that in their roadmap in the next 3-4 years.
Right, and those are the prime fintechs to partner with the ecosystem and figure out ways to build some interesting partnerships with those that have moved fast and have the licenses. Totally.
Right.
So this is a topic close to my mind and work. How do you both think about kind of like a global perspective? So relative to international markets where open banking has already picked up, do you think India is going to follow a similar path or go on its own way?
So I'll go. I mean, see, I think UPI has put India on the world map, right? I think the unexpected success story that's come out of UPI has just changed the way the global markets look at India, the India stack, for example. And I think open banking majority disruption is going to happen from India. The stuff that we've built, I think India will have its own chart to navigate through. India will probably be the outlier compared to the global players, and I think that is something that I'm excited for. Only thing that will hinder our progress, our support, is the lack of support that we could possibly get from the government, where a lot of dependency, a lot of focus will be on regulation. Um, so I think that probably could hinder our growth. But if that is taken care of, I think India would be way ahead of the global market.
Mm.
Yeah, actually, we are quite unique, right? So, like, we are very, it's a very competitive market for the financial space. Like, most other markets are kind of concentrated in the hands of few players, whereas in Indian market, it's wide open. We have way too many banks, and it's good for the consumer that ways. So, I think what we are going to see happen in India will be very different from what's happening in the places where open banking has come up.
Yeah. I would add, as somebody who does a lot of this kind of not necessarily global comparisons, but helping markets around the world understand India, and then participants in India kind of partner with players around the world. I would agree with those things, although there are many banks in every other country, so that's not unique to India. But for the devs in the audience who are here thinking about building within ODEs, it's easy to say, oh, we want to be the plaid of India, or we want to be, like the way there's open banking in the UK, we're going to bring that to India. And that's just kind of patently inappropriate at this point, because as Aalesh said, India is far ahead of these markets in many parts of the open architecture. And so it's really important to be building like India for India first, as opposed to trying to bring in models from around the world. That being said, adoption is kind of very broad for things like open banking in parts of Europe. And so that will be something where it's not just about, the policymakers or all the great folks at iSpirit, Sahamati that are here in the session can put as much of the great framework as there is on board. But if the large organizations, end users, and banks don't adopt it and really take it on, not just as a check the box exercise, adoption will be slower. And so that's kind of the next step right now. But it's really exciting to see. And it is exciting to see that there's 20, 30, 40 markets around the world that are watching closely and taking notes of what's happening here in India to see what they can do in their markets. So we have a question from Karna from Aditya Birla, which is, which are some of the startups working on ODE? So it's a request to drop some names. Who are some of the companies that you're excited about working in this space, guys?
See, Vipul, you want to go first?
Actually, I've been looking out for these companies. Even I don't have a lot of names.
Correct. I think number one is the hosts themselves. I think Flux of Finarkin, they're doing a fabulous job, right? I think that's Karna. If you shouldn't look anywhere else, look at what they're building. But that being said, there is a couple of other companies that are called Galaxy Card that is doing something interesting in lending via UPI. There is a startup which is in stealth mode, which is doing something like interoperability between your UPI accounts. So making a payment via Google Pay to a Paytm without giving your UPI ID, just on mobile phone. So I think interesting things are happening. We are seeing quite a few of those. But for now, the focus is on account aggregator and multiple TSPs that help companies go account aggregator live. I think that's where Karna, my focus and my team's focus will be on.
Mm-hmm. Vipul?
I can't think of any.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would say that, there's lots of startups, just like you hinted that Smallcase might eventually think in this direction. There's lots of startups that are not officially in the ODE space that are thinking about it. So many across our fintech portfolio of 20 plus companies in InsurTech, lending, backend SaaS are all starting to think about how they integrate and start to build on top of a more open stack. That being said, I think, Karna, that some of the actual AAs are startups themselves, and it's interesting to see the development that Finvu, One Money, etc. are doing. There's also kind of startups being incubated in companies like some of the large lenders or growth stage companies in the market that are doing some interesting things. And then obviously the kind of analytics SaaS layer, there's lots to do there. I'd say also some of the B2B lenders are building interesting things. This is both with Oaken, but also with some of the stuff that's gone live recently. So we have a question which kind of ties this nicely together in terms of this being the investor session. It's from an entrepreneur saying, if the market is not ready, should entrepreneurs still be building today or wait for quote unquote deep pockets to make the market ready? Vipul, what about you?
Yeah, I think if you are waiting for deep pockets, then they'll take the market. They'll come at a later stage and take the market. So right now is the time for you to be able to land grab while they are not, focusing on building something. So I would say for entrepreneurs, right now is the time to build something and scale it to a decent level. So as and when the deep pocketed players come into the market, you are already there. You have established a certain base.
Yeah, well put.
Absolutely. I think being an entrepreneur, that's the punt you have to take. There's no right time than the current time. So you have to build, make the most of the opportunity that everyone is still figuring out the space. If you are confident about your product, go out there and at least ride on the equity optimism that's going on in the global world. So make the most of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, rapid fire session that I did not warn you guys about. Last question is, when we are together again at the ODE party, hopefully in person, 5 years from now, what are we going to be talking about? What will be the hot topic for India as it relates to ODEs then?
I think health data, how we have captured on health data and how that has been democratized is what we'll be talking 5 years from now. Because that's a really fragmented market in India as compared to some of the Western world where the health data is already digitalized. So the problem we have to solve first is not just to democratize the health data. First, we have to digitalize the health data and then democratize it. So it's a long journey. I think over the next 5 years, that's what we should look to achieve.
I think there's huge disruption available in lending yet. I think we'll still be talking about lending, fintech, the next 5-10 years from today itself. My answer might be a little biased considering that's all I know. But yes, I feel lending, I feel underwriting, there's huge disruption available. Collection will take a long time for disruption, but underwriting is something that's going to be completely disrupted with ODEs coming in.
Yeah. I agree with both of you. And if I were to pose the same question, I would sort of add that anything to do with inclusion. So, Aadhaar, etc., in some ways expanded financial inclusion to very last mile in India, but there's still so much to do in terms of digitizing data that's out there to really offer fast, services. Everything from even land records, which is going to be a 10-year process in India, to, as you're saying, health records and lending. Just tons to do. Well, thank you to everybody in the room today. It's been really a pleasure to be with all of you. Aalesh and Vipul, great insights. Thanks for spending the time. And Nikhil, kudos on a really terrific day and session over the past couple of days and all the work you're doing to kind of help grow this ecosystem.
Yeah, and I want to chip in and answer the last question as well. I think 5 years down the line, I would want to talk about scale. I would want to talk about the fact that looking back, it would look like a bunch of geniuses, think tanks came together and pulled it off, right? But today, for the builders out there in the audience who are thinking, uh, building at this kind of scale seems impossible, and people might think you are attempting something ridiculous. It is you have to take that risk. You have to give it a shot, and who knows, 5 years down the line, you you'll be hailed a genius. So yeah, building for scale is exactly what something like ODEs can enable, and it is a myriad of you have the government entities, you have private players, you have community, everyone coming together. So it's a collective effort, and that's exactly what I would look forward to in the next 5 years. So
Cool.
thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. This was an awesome session. Thank you, Melissa, Aalesh, and Vipul.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.
Yep. Nice being here. Thank you.
Bye.